So if you've already filled out the form, then take a second maybe to scroll through your gallery and look at the other faces that are here. We kind of get into floating head space and we're only looking at the speaker, and remember that you're not alone. Whatever resources you're going to be grabbing and moving, it's not just you, there's other people. So actually, Adina, why don't we stop share for a minute so we can all see each other? Hi, so look at your different squares. Yes, hello, hey, tuning Jared, Amy, hi. Feel free to screen on or screen off, totally up to y'all. Andrew, Lizzie, Nancy, hi. Welcome Jack, Catherine, hi Matt, Katie G, Katie Gunning, hey, Michelle, Rachel, Stephanie. I'm so glad y'all are here. We're all so glad we're all here. This is big stuff. So I had my first session of this on Wednesday and I was like kind of a mess. So if you came to that one, I really appreciate your patience. And also I'm really excited because it's just a thing I care a lot about. And it's like, these conversations don't really exist a lot of other places. So we're kind of making it up as we go with the best help we can get from the guidance of people of color and other folks who've been doing this work. So I'm really excited to be doing this more locally in San Diego on Kumeyaay land. So with that, actually, Adina, can you take us back to slide 2? So we want to stop and take a second. Any conversation that we are going to have about redistributing wealth must recognize how all of the wealth that has been built in this country has been built and how that has happened. And we want to start first with acknowledging whose land we are currently on, the Kumeyaay people. And there, we want to also say there's a varied, diverse group of folks from lots of different backgrounds. Yes, and we've got people from other places. I'm so glad. If you are not from San Diego, Kumeyaay land area, and you know the people's land that you're on, please put that in the chat. We'd love to know where you're from. This doesn't have to just be a San Diego conversation. So, it's important that we really understand that the foundation of all wealth accumulated in America in the United States, what's called the United States, Turtle Island, is built on stolen land. And also even just like an entirely different concept of what it means to be on land and to use land. So it's not as though, I think it's important that we also understand that like when we say that it's on stolen land, like we stole it from the property owners of this land. That's not what happened, right? The stewards of this land, the people in communication with this land, the people who have, done the controlled burns and, for hundreds of years figured out how to, find the resources they need to live well, right? All of that has been happening for hundreds of years before settlers came and started partitioning off this land and monetizing it for themselves. And so any discussion we have has to start there. And that's the same story that has played out in, every other place, not just in the United States, but as settler colonialism has spread through all of the globe. And so it's important that we start there. And I encourage you to learn about the people whose land you're on, because though many of them have unfortunately been lost to the genocide that the settlers perpetuated, many, because of the fortitude and resistance of their ancestors, continue to exist. The traditions exist, the knowledge of the land exists, despite all efforts to completely eradicate them. And so I really encourage you, wherever you are, to really learn more about the folks whose land you're on. If you are in San Diego, what's called San Diego area, please check out like the Barona Cultural Museum, Kumeyaay Community College. There are community college courses where you can learn about the Kumeyaay. You can learn about language preservation, and really also learn about cross-border indigeneity and the ways in which our borderlands and the militarization of the borders has also perpetuated this notion of like whose land is whose, and has really continued to have a history of resistance, but also a history of trying to marginalize folks and take their land. So just want to, I want to start with that because that's the foundation of so much of what we're going to be talking about. So I would ask you, actually, can you pause here, Adina? And in addition, or actually, you know what, Adina? I'm sorry. Go to the next slide, and then we'll pause. Thank you. So I want to highlight Dr. D.G. Kelly, who has done a lot of extensive research on racial capitalism, which is a concept proposed by Cedric J. Robinson, which describes the process of extracting social and economic value from a person of a different racial identity, referring predominantly to the extraction of value from those of a non-white person of color identity. Now, this is deep stuff, and I am still really working out my understanding of economics and, you know, all these complex overlaps of things. But this is a great place to start, and we will send with our follow-up email a couple of things from DG Kelly, Dr. Kelly, that talk more about this if you really want to dig deep. But it is important that we base all of, again, this around understanding, though we may all have intersecting identities of, you know, being people of color who also have access to racial, you know, to capital, that really what we've seen in extraction in what's called the United States and in other countries as well has been at the expense of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. Andrew, can you see the slide? Uh-oh.
No, it just says Adina has started screen sharing.
Okay.
But we can't see.
Oh, shoot. Okay, well, I can see it.
Let me try it again.
Yeah, we'll redo.
Can you see
it? And how about that? Can we get an amen? Amen. All right, cool. So yeah, and I also want to encourage y'all to use the chat if you like. I know for some of us having chat going like, you know, really fast can be distracting, so you're welcome to turn that off. But if y'all have questions or anything as things come up, feel free to hit the chat. Or if you have comments or amens, I'm a really big fan of like yeah, that feels right. So let's definitely feel free to use that. And y'all feel free to co-moderate together in the chat. But we also have Adina, Nancy, a couple of other folks who are regulars here who can also chat with you. All right, so where did the wealth come from? So if you'll go to the next one, Adina. So stolen land, stolen bodies, stolen futures. We have to remember that, you know, the slave trade, what we saw was people who were stolen from the places and their land and brought to this place to work for free and for their bodies and the bodies of their children to be the property that helped gain wealth for the people who currently hold wealth. Whether your family or those that make that wealth were slave owners or not, the proximity to whiteness, the proximity to class privilege, right? All of those things were built on the backs of slavery, the horrific transatlantic slave trade. A system of slavery unlike any system of slavery we've seen in the history of the world. Where else did the wealth come from? Unequal policies. Being able to buy houses in districts that were not redlined, right? Getting GI Bill money because your grandfather, great-grandfather was white, but other folks, Black folks, not having access to that, even though they did their time in the military, were sent overseas to kill people and came home with nothing to show for it. Still the same racism that's there. And we could go on, continuing now. Interest rates for Black folks, Indigenous people, right? Inhumane conditions. Labor policies that are extractive and punishing. Thank God for unions. Thank God for, you know, working folks who fought back. But all of that extracted wealth from communities poor communities, working class communities, and particularly communities of color because of inhumane conditions. And then I think there's one more. Yeah, abusive workers. Over and over and over again. And extraction of resources from communities. And we see in policing now, right? The use of like, you know, stopping folks and searching them with no cause so that you can throw a felony on them so that then you can get that money. And now they're a person whose body is in prison that now they get to make money off of, right? These are all the ways in which wealth has come to our nation, the place where we live. Okay. Adina, what's the next one? Because I can't do it at the same time. Okay. So let's do this one. I know this one's kind of hard to read. If you can't read it, I generally like to, if it's like a zine and art, I prefer to let people read it first because it's meant as a visual art form. So can people see it? Is there anyone who can't see this slide very well or read it? We had trouble the other night. Okay, cool. So I'll give you a second just to read it yourself. This is, I forget what her name is, like Miss something, but she's the one that silences people.
Miss Manners.
Miss Manners, that's right. See some smiles of recognition, I think. So I'm going to read it out loud just for accessibility too. So you see a sort of what seems to be a family at a table, and the young person with pigtails says, "Daddy, are we rich?" And ostensibly the daddy says, "Well, honey, it's like this. It all started when your great grandfather," and then you see Miss Manners swoop in with a blowhorn and like, "Cough, cough. Are you all right?" And then the father instead says, "Ahem. Anyway, as I was saying, that's not proper dinner table conversation, young lady." So that's scenario one. And then scenario two is meanwhile across town. So how will we stop Concord from building the condo development in our neighborhood? And then a person says, "Well, my dad's on the board of the Concorp. We could find out." And then you see someone from the other group with an angry face say, "What the?" and kind of shuts things down. And then the person of privilege says, "I mean, I think we should pick it outside their next board meeting, those bastards." Yeah. So it says, will the youth of America ever overcome the wrath of Miss Manners' gag rule? Tune in next time. So I want to pause here. So let's stop sharing. So we have two scenarios here. And I wonder if they feel familiar to you. If you want to say in the chat if they feel familiar to you, if any of these, because again, we're going to be digging into our own class privilege in a minute and like where we fall in our positionality. But I'm curious if like in either of those two scenarios kind of resonate. So just take a second to think back to times in your life where maybe one of those two things has happened, either internally or externally. Just let you silently reflect. And if you have any stories like that, I'd ask you to throw them in the chat. In a second, we're going to break into breakout rooms. We're going to be able to discuss this more fully with some other people. But please throw them in the chat of, you know, if one of those two things felt resonant with your experience, please, you know, let us know. Or if, you know, it brings up questions or feelings, we really encourage you to unpack your feelings on this here. It's a great way for us to be able to be resilient and really unpacking these things, break the gag rule, you know? So the next question that I have is, you know, what we're seeing in those two is that there's a rule that we're not supposed to talk about money. And especially, I'm aiming this towards those of us who have access and proximity to class privilege, right? Whether you have it now or have that proximity, because of a lot of different things, right? And there's a lot of feelings and stuff to unpack in both of those scenarios. And so I'm curious, like, why do you think that we do this, right? Miss Manners is telling us that you cannot talk about your class position and you cannot talk about how you got to be in that class position. Never is it appropriate. You can't talk about it with other rich people, and you can't talk about it with people who are poor. Gag rule, done. So I'm going to ask Adina to divide us up into groups of three, apologies. And we're going to ask you to check in with each other and first, like, introduce yourselves, because this is going to be an ongoing series. And so you might be seeing these people at part 2 and any other, like, you know, support groups that we'll be doing as we raise money and move that freaking resources around. So go ahead and get to know each other. Movements are stronger when we know each other and love each other. But also, this is a chance to, like, really break the gag rule. Like, why are we not allowed to talk about money? What would it mean? How is it I mean, I think some things to consider are, like, how would it be a threat to the power structure if we started talking about where we are, how we got here, right? Whose interest is it in for us not to talk about it, right? So that might be a thing to think about, you know? Or, like, personally, what are the personal reasons why we don't feel like we can talk about it? What are the emotional things maybe that feel like, ooh, you know, like, what are you feeling? What does it mean about you as an individual if you were to disclose some of those things and talk about it? What are the fears maybe that come from it? So, like, I think like from a personal and also from a structural perspective, why aren't we supposed to talk about this stuff? Why are we not talking about it? Okay. So Dina, you want to give us breakout instructions? Are you all set?
We are all set. We're going to get split into 4 breakout rooms with 3 people each, and you'll go, and then Blair had some questions for us to think about.
Yeah, just the things I just said.
Right.
And I do also want to say, just like for safety and all those other things, whenever you're in a breakout room, if you ever have a situation where someone is, like, talking to you in a way that feels unsafe or anything like that, please always leave the room and just come straight back in here, and there'll be someone here to catch you and make sure that you're taken care of. And also, if there's a person who's, like, causing hurt, that they are out of here, right? This is a place where we really care for each other. So whatever safety you need, we're here for you, okay? All right, so off to breakout rooms we go. So anyway, thank you so much. Glad you're back. Sorry, I didn't mean to be so silly. I'm sure we're coming back with maybe some heavy things in our hearts. And so I just do want to take a second, since we've been here for about 40 minutes, to I want to give us, like, a little bit of silence to breathe and absorb what we just talked about. At SURJ, we really encourage us to be in our bodies. And one of the things that happens to white people and people of class privilege is that we're encouraged to stay in our heads so that we can intellectualize away a lot of the things that exist in our really messed up system that we benefit from. And so we really always encourage you to find ways to stay in your body and regulate in the way that makes sense for you. If you ever need help with that, we're here for you. So I know it might feel some things, but also this is the beginning. Like, when you start to feel, one of the things I'm really learning, both as internally and then also across difference and views, is, you know, when there's challenge, when there's feelings, that's when we're digging into, like, the good stuff, right? So find where it is safe for you, but, like, know that that's progress. Actually, the fear is actually progress. So thank you for being vulnerable with each other. So I want us to put some things in context. And Adina, I don't know if there's that slide that has, like, the median income. You're muted, but
I
I
am
you're
muted,
saying
but
you're
I
working
am
on it.
finding it. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Here we go.
it's not the most beautiful slide, but I just want to give us context. And I think one of the things I heard in my group, and you probably heard elsewhere, is like, we all have these individual stories. And one of the things that, because we live in a society that tells us like all about the individual story and the self-made man or the immigrant story or the, you know, or bootstraps, or only starts from like when I was born and never talking about like all the things that got you to there. We sometimes don't have like the context. And I think that's where we get blinded a lot in the United States, is that we have not been given the context of how our economy works. And also we haven't been given context about how wealth is actually distributed. Like, I remember this was like a really big revelation for me, because I grew up being taught that I was like middle upper class. And I looked at, you know, a few years ago, the median income was like, you know, $60,000. At the time I was making $67,000. And I had a husband who was making an income too. So I was like, oh, I'm like above, like I'm very much above the median. And if I think about like the class that I grew up in, right, very much above the median, right? And if you look at the median income, which means basically 50% of people in the United States are above and 50% are below that number. So that's like the median, that's what median means. And then if you look at average income, look how much higher that is. Any math folks want to tell me what that means? Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to explain why that number is so much higher.
Extremely high numbers pull the average up.
Exactly. Thank you. Who was that?
Rachel, hi.
Thank you, Rachel. And Rachel, you also asked about global numbers. I don't have global ones, but we should definitely, because that is a whole other layer, right? Of the context of this country as it is, in the context and all the ways we've been extractive out of other places and the history of that. So thank you. We'll try to add that in. So with that, I just want you to like take a second. Is that surprising to you? Like thinking about where you're positioned in that, either growing up or currently, you know, what does that mean to you? And Adina, you can stop sharing now. And I'm going to actually put a document in here that we're going to use to help us orient ourselves inside of the context of our economy. And it's a way to figure out kind of where do you fit, right? We all have, I think it's really important that we say that we have really complicated intersecting experiences and identities that affect what kind of access we have to resources. Things change over time, right? So I'm going to give you this document eventually. Where did it go? Keep clicking it and then it goes away. Copy, and then in the chat. And I'm going to actually share screen for a second and kind of show you what it looks like. Maybe, if it will let me. Doing that thing again. Open preview. Are y'all having trouble seeing it, or are you able to click on it? There we go. Okay, cool. So this is a document that I got from the Catalyst project, which is in Oakland. And I did this exercise as part of a workshop and like ongoing thing. And this helps break it down for us kind of, and look, there's different frameworks for naming these different classes. And, you know, it's not like a perfect grid, right? But this gives us not only like what the income might be, but also like what are some of the life experiences that you might have had as part of this group, right? And it also allows you, one of the things our dear friend Christine Farmer did that was so smart is went through this document and kind of like highlighted the things that were true of her experience and kind of saw that, like, you know, she had some cross-class experiences, both in her childhood and as an adult. And then also obviously, you know, based on our other intersecting experiences and identities, you know, what kind of experiences we've had. So we're going to actually do another breakout room I want to first give us some time as individuals to reflect on this and kind of see where we are. And just because I know it's helpful for some people to know what's coming next, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to give you a few minutes to reflect on this individually and silently and kind of like look through and kind of see where you're at. If we have some time, we might go into breakout rooms again to kind of discuss what we saw. And then after that, we're going to get into like the fundraising stuff. So starting to think about, okay, now what proximity do I have? Where are the people that I can start tapping for resources and doing some brainstorming around that? And then at our next one, we'll start talking about like, how do you start having the conversation? And we will continue, you know, with each step. So right now, if you'll pull up that doc, if you are still having trouble accessing it, please let us know. But I'm going to give us 5 minutes to just feel free to turn off your screen, silence whatever's going on here. I'm going to play some music, so you're welcome to mute that if you're not into it. But if you like it, it'll be there. And just go through with this document, and you can make a copy for yourself if you want and like highlight the parts that you want, or just like write on your notebook, whatever is your best processing way to do that. Okay, so I'll give us 5 minutes and I'll turn on some music for us too. Okay, see you in 5. Great, so let's come back together. If you're back with us, I'd love for you to turn on your video if you like. Yeah, welcome back. Great. So I wonder if maybe we could just, if anyone's feeling comfortable to kind of share a little bit of your experience. Again, remembering it, this is recorded, it is going to be out there. So if you feel comfortable, but we also can do some breakout rooms as well. But if anybody'd like to just share some initial feelings or thoughts around doing this exercise that you'd like to, just feel free to maybe if you can do just write like me or like stack or something in the chat, just so that we're like honoring that different people step forward in different ways. And then we'll call your name and you can unmute yourself. Actually, Adina, would you do that so it's less me talking?
Sure.
Thanks.
Is anybody interested in sharing? Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, so I just reading through this definitely resonated with all the descriptions under middle class, and particularly the line about being conditioned to fear being poor. I feel like that mentality really resonated, not even so much as fear, but more just like we work hard so that like we can take care of ourselves, which was always framed in a way that felt very positive. And so it's like, you know, I'm still struggling with that internal battle of like reconciling these good intentioned or what felt like good intentioned lessons growing up with the actual harm that those ways of thinking can cause when you see it kind of as an individual struggle as well as more interconnected within the fabric of society. I was also surprised. So another thing in there was that middle class is treated as the norm, which is definitely how I felt. Like I felt like all of those things that I experienced were kind of the status quo. And I wasn't so much surprised at the lower categories being as big as they were, unfortunately, but I was surprised that the managerial class was so big and that more of those people weren't in middle class. I think like I guess saw my experiences being more aligned with theirs, and then reading through the descriptors of that group, I was like, none of these things applied to me in my experience growing up. So it was surprising to me, I guess, to see how many people fall in that category. I expected middle class to be much bigger than it is. So yeah, those are my initial takeaways.
Thank you for sharing. Really appreciate that. I know, just to fill a little bit of a void, I know like when I was growing up, it was always like we had like the caveats. It's like, oh, we're upper lower middle class, you know, like trying to like find a way to like really like declare, you know, put I can't find the noun today, but modify it in a way so it's like, oh no, we're not middle class, we're like lower middle class, but we're like upper, just like trying to find ways to like excuse where we are and stuff. So it's always interesting to see. It's like no, we were solid middle class, and like Catherine was saying, it's just like feeling like that was like obviously what everybody's doing, but it's actually only a fifth of the population. So but Jack, you said you had some stuff that you wanted to add.
Yeah, one of the first things that really struck my attention was I've known this before, but just the reminder of like in the census, these numbers do not represent people who are indigenous, of Asian or Arab descent, and it just, that's still wild that that's not included and that's not an option. And so yeah, that was the first thing that really hit me in this document. And then the other thing, when I was reading the very bottom of it, when it talks about like a family is defined as this, wealth is defined as everything you own. And that really changes it, I think, for me. I think a lot of people, when they talk about their wealth, they talk about, how much money they make and where that puts them, but that's not it. It's, all of your assets, and that can put you in a totally different place. And I think that's why I've experienced a lot of people who will say like, we're not rich, we're middle class, we make this, but you are a different class than that. Look at all your assets and put those all in order. So yeah, it was insightful in that way.
Anybody else have something to share? Cool.
So hi,
I'm
everyone.
sorry, Rachel.
Yeah. My name's Rachel. So I just want to say I'm a person of color. So I'm Filipino. My parents are from the Philippines. They immigrated here, and I was born and raised here. So I think reading the document, I kind of skimmed it, but I think I can't get it out of my head that like middle class in America to my cousins in the Philippines is like super, super, super rich. And just the context of that. And I've been looking recently at like dollars per hour, what that means in different countries. Like, so I'm trying to become a physical therapist. So I would make in America probably like, I don't know, like 28 to 35, $40 an hour, something around there, US dollars. And then if I was in the Philippines, I would be making $5 US an hour. And just the difference of what that meant for me specifically, like if I was born in the Philippines, how would my life be different? How would all of this look differently to me? So that's just something I've been reflecting on. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's as Americans, like we sometimes have like no like fair concept of like what that global disparity is, and how much that can factor into these sort of things, especially when you get out of that Eurocentric worldview.
Yeah, thank you so much, all of y'all, for sharing. And, I want to come back to this concept of like, what is wealth? What does it mean to be rich? And this is like a really funny ongoing joke inside of We All We Got. So I forgot to do the introduction at the beginning about like, how'd you get here? I work with SURJ San Diego. I'm one of the leadership over there. We galvanize white folks for racial and economic justice. And then We All We Got, obviously, is a queer women of color led organization that does food distribution and gives mutual aid to folks, empowers folks who are, have the answers to the problems we're trying to solve, right? So I said that and then I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, the funny ongoing joke inside of We All We Got is like Christina Griffin Jones, one of our co-founders, makes a real great joke all the time, is like, if you know where your next paycheck is coming from and you like have a steady work, and especially during this pandemic, you're rich. If you know that you're not going to be kicked out of your house next month, like compared to a huge number of Americans, like the majority, if you look at that number of Americans, you are rich, right? So it's like the concept that we have very often of like, because I've been unemployed for the last 7 or 8 months, right? but I also have had like an unemployment check coming every week, every 2 weeks, you know? And so like, what are these, like, what does it mean to be rich, right? And we do, those of us want to distance ourselves constantly from like our wealth. But again, combining what Rachel is saying about like global context and then also like local context, we have to understand what it means to like have enough money to actually redistribute, because we're going to feel the desire to hoard because it feels like we never have enough, right? So with that, I want to kind of move on to the next piece of this, which is like, okay, so how are we going to move this money, right? How are we going to move resources? Remembering that there's all different kinds of ways to move resources. Some of that will be like asking directly for money, which we should really, really, really do. And there's all kinds of creative and other like new system making ways that we're working on to redistribute, right? So Adina, can you pull up the slide? I don't remember where exactly we need to start here. Let's see. Oh yeah, can you start with the fundraising is organized? Oh no, start with number 9, please. Thank you. Big thanks to Adina, by the way, for like making the things happen. So I'm just gonna, because I want us to get to like brainstorming time here. And all of this information will be sent to you in a follow-up email, so I don't want to stress this out or anything. So I just want to like read out loud. There we go. So just want to talk about who gives, right? And I just want us to remind ourselves that though we are talking about tapping networks of wealthy folks, and again, that's all relative, the majority of money that happens to like make grassroots orgs go, that comes from like working class people usually. Like all we got has been like completely like, yes, we've gotten some really big grants, but it's a lot of been like $20 here, $10 there, people buying groceries and, you know, doing that. And then, you know, not getting paid back and like paying that forward. I mean, it's just like those are the people that keep us running. So like, let's first get rid of the idea that it's a bunch of rich folks that are keeping people, you know, through charitable donations able to keep running. That's just not the case, right? But I do want to name the reality, which is that, over the last few years, it says the bottom 90% will continue to give and will give as generously as they always have, but their giving will reflect that they have less money than they used to, because our wealth gap continues to lean towards those who have money keep getting more money, and the people who don't have money keep getting less money. And you can read this other one later, but you can see that there's been a decrease in giving, right? In some ways, like, let's see, on the other hand, wealthy people's share of their income that went to charity decreased, but their overall giving increased by 4.6 billion because their income surged so much. So I want us to contextualize all of that too, right? Like the landscape of giving and the way that we think about it is so leaning in like completely false and unsubstantiated directions, right? And so that's why it's time for folks in our income brackets to like pay their share. It's time, right? So go to the next slide for me. All right, fundraising is organizing. So I see a lot of folks who, you know, we need to remember that, yes, this is about moving money, but this is also about bringing us all into this movement of building new systems. And because of the proximity that we have to people with wealth and people who have proximity to whiteness, right? Asking folks for money, and this is across all, whoever you're asking, but whenever you're asking someone to give money or resources or time, it's an opportunity to bring them into the movement, right? And to strengthen their commitment for justice. So asking someone to support an organization is similar to any other organizing ask. You get them curious, excited about it, and invested enough to take action. And it's a great way for you to have a chance to talk to people in your life, including your white relatives, about racism and racial justice and the vision of the world that you're working towards. Many people who will never be activists or organizers will contribute in other ways, but only if they're asked by someone they trust. And this is the one way that we can make room for them in our movements, right? So we think of asking for money as a bother, right? But it's not a bother. You are giving people an opportunity to be a part of shifting systems in ways that help them to restore their own humanity, right? We have been the people with the boot on the neck, right? How do we restore our own humanity? How do we stop grasping? How do we see ourselves as part of a movement for collective liberation towards systems that are good for all of us, right? And I want to name also that some of the language I just used is also from Catalyst Project. So I want to give credit for that. All right, next one, Adina. So I know this sounds wild, but you already know everyone you need to know to reach your goals. I'm also a part of the Dee Dee McClure Community Bail Fund, who you may have heard of, who's been bailing out a lot of folks who've been doing civil disobedience and things like that and the uprisings. But we also before that did the Black and Brown Mamas bailout, and we raised $65,000 in 6 weeks. And that was through like targeted asks. We had people who gave $10,000 a piece, right? So we can find people, those big ones, but also those small ones, right? Like it's, again, like no gift is, it's all about like, how are we getting people to be impactful in the way that they are themselves, like impacting themselves in their own giving. And so if you want to go through, we're going to do an exercise here, Adina. So first take your pen and paper, draw a symbol that represents yourself in the circle. You can do a stick figure or a, floating head or a cloud or, whatever you want. Big smiley face, big red lips, whatever feels good. And now pick 5 communities or networks you're connected to, up to 5, right? If you can't hit 5, that's cool. Like some of us prefer to keep our networks small. That's cool, but really like try to be creative. Think about, and maybe throw in the chat to help folks out if you want. Maybe it's your place of worship. If you go to school, oh good, thanks Adina. People you volunteer with, exercise classmates, health practitioners, political activists, teachers at your kid's school. I don't know, we got some other ones? Okay, you take a second to think about your own. Then Adina, we go to the next one. So in each box on the chart or whatever you've used to like delineate the different groups that you're sort of a part of, under each of those, you can go to the next one. List 5 to 10 people who you think might be interested in the work of your organization and what you will ask them to do. So we're asking and would love it if you have no place where you're wanting to raise that money for We All We Got. Because this is being co-sponsored by We All We Got, because we know that the work they're doing is filling the gaps that the government is not taking care of, we'd encourage you to do that. But we want these skills used everywhere in the community. We just ask that whoever you're raising for, Black, Indigenous, people of color led, right? If it's a grassroots organization. And you might be raising money for like an individual person, and we're all for that, right? We believe really strongly it's okay. Like you might be raising money for a Black mother who needs rent because of the way that works. So think that through. So who might be interested in the work of your organization and what you will ask them to do. Adina, can you go to the next slide? So think about like what kinds of things you can ask them. Is it $500? Like ask bigger, right? You know where your folks are at. Ask bigger. People are just waiting to be asked, right? They're sitting there waiting to be asked. Maybe they become a monthly sustainer, right? That helps orgs so much to be able to plan, to be able to staff and like pay people instead of it being free, right? Free labor. Maybe they host a house party when it's COVID safe, invite 20 people. Maybe they're gonna do like a Zoom like telethon, right? Maybe they have access to computer and printer and they can like print flyers, or they can knit, or they can bring masks, right? What do you feel like would connect with them that could be impactful? And give you a few more minutes to work on that. All right. So I'm going to ask you to stop thinking on that for right now, because we're going to move on to our next thing to start thinking on as we get ready for our next meeting and just kind of where we head next. So crafting your ask. I know this is like kind of nonprofit lingo, but the reality is like one of the things that we're going to have to start reminding ourselves and getting inoculated to and getting used to is that you are going to be asking people to do something. You are going to ask them and you're going to leave silence and you're going to let them answer. I'm saying because it's like, it's uncomfortable and we're not used to it, but this is the thing that you're going to be doing. And it's important that we all get right with ourselves, that it is going to be uncomfortable. Some people are going to feel feelings about it, right? Because we've all been indoctrinated in a lot of the similar ways around money. But it's, as we said before, they are going to give to people that they already know, right? You are someone they trust and they love and they care about, right? They have a relationship with, they respect you because you're dope and they are into you. And so they are going to trust you that when you say this thing matters and you get to tell them why it matters to you, then you're going to ask them to do a thing, right? So Dina, if you want to go to the next one. So first thing is, why this org or why this person, right? So you want to start with, as you're thinking through, what is it about this organization that's unique? What purpose does it serve that other orgs are not doing? Is it maybe a need they're filling? Is it a way that they operate? Like one of the things I love about We All We Got is like very values centered. So the way we operate is just as important as like what we do, right? Who's it led by maybe, right? People, when it's led by folks most of the margins, those are the experts. Those are the folks that usually have the answers, right? So like giving to an org, you can use that kind of language, right? Or if it's not an organization, why this person? Why do you think it's important to make sure that this person is housed? Why do you think it's important that, you know, this person be able to like start school, whatever is the thing that you're raising money for? It's weird. I want to just like name, like people are going to feel weird about giving money straight to one person or straight to an org that doesn't have, you know, as we'll say in a second, you know, so really be thinking about that. Next one, Adina. All right, your personal story, and you can go to the next one too. What have you invested in this org? So if that's money, then great. Like tell them the number. Tell them I'm giving $250 a month, or I'm giving $10, whatever works, right? Or I've been donating 10 hours of my time a week. You know, I've seen Amy out there doing deliveries, right? I've seen, you know, Matt taking donations over the Brown building, right? And you guys have invested things in either these people or these orgs. So what have you invested? Be honest and don't try to be shy about it. Tell them if you've given big, tell them what you've given and what you've sacrificed for it and how it's been, whether it's been uncomfortable, whatever it is. And why have you been doing that? Why do you keep doing it? What has it meant for you? And I think as we start to move away from like charity into solidarity, which we'll talk about in a second, it's okay for you to center yourself in the story and move away from, hey, you should give to these people because they deserve it, right? That's not the narrative that we want to use. Everybody deserves it. So what is it meaning for you? How can you situate yourself inside of the narrative of collective liberation? This work is actually good for you too, right? What has it been doing for you? And what you've learned, and how does it create the world you and they and we, right? Because those people we are assuming, right? We want a place where everyone's housed. We want a place where everyone has food. We might all have different agreements about like how to get there. It's not bootstraps, it's something else, right? So how to tell a little more about like, how is this thing making the new system? How is it making the new world? Bring them into it, right? This is where you can discuss things like mutual aid and what is the difference between mutual aid? What is transformative justice? Like, how does this look different than the traditional models? And why is that good? It helps them to be less afraid, right? Change is scary, especially for people of privilege who benefit from the current system, you know? All right, next one. And then solidarity versus charity. And we can get more into this another day, but I don't know, maybe we could, I've been talking a lot. So maybe in the chat, if somebody wants to say like what, or if you want to unmute, if you'll let us know you want to unmute, what does it mean? What does it mean to you, the difference between solidarity versus charity?
Hi, this is Rachel. I'll just toss in something that I think sometimes, like, even I'm guilty of this. Like, I want to jump in and be the hero, right? Or like people want to jump in and be the hero and save this thing, but this is not a, this ship is sinking and one person can't hold it up, right? So I think one thing to emphasize is just to learn that we're all a part of this, right? And we each have a place and we're stronger if each person has their little heroic acts, right? Does that make sense?
Their little hero what?
Just like little heroic acts. Like no one can be the one hero, but we all do little things, right?
Yeah. Everyone's going to have their own little hero. I love that. I think that's so true, right? Because charity is this model that's like, I'm going to come in and like bring you all this stuff and your life is going to be better. And then I go away, right? And you get to be the hero. And the model is like that those other people aren't heroes, you're the hero, right? Whereas what I'm hearing you say, Rachel, or what's I'm resonating with is it's a bunch of heroes, like the people who are surviving and thriving and the folks that are like sharing with one another. And that's a thing that we'll get into more with mutual aid, but solidarity and mutual aid is something that folks at the margins who are most targeted have been doing for forever, right? Pooling money to pay a parking ticket, pooling money to pay for a medical bill, doing childcare when you have to go to work, right? So like these are systems that already exist and that we are trying to help the larger, broader, dominant world understand and like take on, right? And that includes all of us being little heroes and seeing everyone else as little heroes, right? All right, Adina, next one. So just a couple of things to think about, and we'll dig into this maybe at the next one, but like, just know that like a few things that are gonna come up is like, does it have 501c3 status? And what they're really asking, is it vetted? Can I trust them? Because I really only trust things that have been vetted by the US government. And then number two is it a tax write-off, right? And so start thinking about, and we'll get into it more at the next one, like, how do we subvert and talk about like how 501c3 status has been limited to only some people, right? And why that can be really continuing to funnel money into the same places, right? The other thing you're gonna run into is hoarding. All of us have been taught that like, you gotta hold on because you never know what's gonna happen. And also we have no support systems. There is no safety net in this country. And so it's very real and understandable that people are like, oh, I gotta make sure that maybe one day it's gonna be me on the chopping block, right? And that's real because this is an inhumane system that we have. And it's also not real. For those of us who have proximity to privilege and money and who have, steady incomes or, a home, the reality is like, we're good. We are probably always gonna be okay. Even if we lost everything, there would still be a piece of property somewhere or access to networks that will keep us afloat, right? And so it's important that you understand that for yourself, like, and don't get all judgy about other people because I'm there, I get it, and like notice the grasping in yourself and also like recognize that grasping is going to be happening and think about like, how do you undermine that, right? How do you talk about how freeing it is to operate out of abundance instead of scarcity, and how has it felt to you, right? And then lastly, wanting proof, right? They're going to want like, who are you serving? How do I know that, these people really are poor enough for me to help, those kinds of things. And I don't mean to be denigrating of that. It's an ingrained thing that we've been taught, that there's gonna be scammers and, take advantage. And we're gonna unpack all of that stuff in later conversations for sure. But just wanna like have you consider, how can you tailor your ask that doesn't require you to like, I hate using this, let me find a better language than what I'm gonna say, without creating these same narratives of disempowered, anyway, we all know the thing. I won't say all the words, we all know. So great, so to the next one, Adina. So we're not going to write right now. We'll go on to the next one. But I encourage you to start writing some, like really write down, like, how would I explain this to somebody, right? What is it meant for me to be involved with this person? And we'll do that. We'll make some space for that, hopefully at the next one. But before we leave, what I do want us to do is set ambitious goals. Ambitious, get ambitious. Because whatever money we think we need to raise, we need more. Because the government is not coming for us. We all we got, for real. Like we can't wait around. We're the only people that are, we're all doing it together. So set some ambitious goals and then also set realistic deadlines for yourself. So I would encourage you, we're almost coming up on April 1st. If you're going to be, and I find also with fundraising, giving yourself a deadline just creates a lot more momentum. And it really pushes you also in that sort of gamified way to be like, woo, look at all that money stacking up, So I would encourage you, we're at the 1-year anniversary of We All We Got. You can actually stop sharing, Adina. Thank you. We're at the 1-year anniversary of We All We Got. Incredible. I mean, I would love, hopefully you guys have been paying attention to some of the great educationals that have been going on with us and folks that have been talking, leadership that have been talking, but it's been an incredible year of getting a lot done, a lot of work done. And there's going to be we will be celebrating over the month of April, a lot of the work that we've done, also honoring those who've died as a result of COVID. And we'll be doing a lot of those things, but we are really pushing hard to get big money to We All We Got. Because there's such a need as far as feeding folks, but also we have staff that do a lot of work, and we believe in paying people for their labor. And especially when we have, queer femmes of color who are doing all this work for free, we know that that's not appropriate and that's not in line with what we want, right? If we're going to say that we're self-sustaining and able to take care of each other in a true mutual aid way, that means that if we're going to be asking, folks to put in that time, that they are taken care of, that they have insurance, that they're paid for, all those things. So I would really encourage you to set We All We Got as your space and set May 1st as your deadline. Gives you 4 weeks, right? Give yourself more time. If you want to do 2 months, that's fine. Like, we always need the money, right? Your capacity, but like set it far enough away that you can start to prepare yourself, but close enough that you've got some go, right? Thank you, Lizzie. See you later. Great. So then I think that's the last thing. I'm going to give you guys a little form here to start thinking about and making some of those commitments. So let me pull up this form. Oops. Oh, also, I meant to say that the exercise I had y'all do, I got off of a website and the author was Shaw Grogan Brown. So I just want to make sure that I'm not taking anybody's property. Copy. Here we go. So this is a form that I'm going to ask y'all to fill out that's having you make some commitments, right? About what you're going to raise, who you're going to raise it for. Let us know if you're wanting to opt into some support from us about how to, if you just need a little help, and just to unpack some of what we looked at today. So I'm going to give us some time to look at that, make some commitments, think through, and then, we'll close out. It's 12:05, so I try to be cognizant of the fact that we're at the end here. So maybe what we can do is before you leave, let's just do a real quick, if you'll in the chat, put one word of how you're feeling right now at the end of the workshop. And then I hope you'll stick around and fill out the form, but if you need to go. And fill out the form later, but I would really encourage you to make the commitment right now if you have the time. So throw into the chat what's one word you're feeling, take a deep breath, feel your body, and then we'll see you either this coming Wednesday or next Sunday, same times we had before. We'll have part 2 of It Ain't Yours, where we'll be talking more about the ask and digging in. Good, Katie says motivated, Jack says energized. Yes, good, Nancy, motivated too. If you're still scared, saying scared is okay. Or confused, grateful, yeah, overwhelmed, but grateful and overwhelmed in a necessary way. Yeah, overwhelmed can mean you're hitting good stuff. Scared too. All right, so I'm gonna play us a little music while people fill out the form. And if you want to stick around and still have some questions, that's great. I think I have capacity to chill till like 12:20 or so. So yeah, we'll just throw some music on first, and then we'll, in about 3 minutes, come back and if there's any Q&A. Thank y'all so much. This is incredible revolutionary work to get together and be talking about this. So really take some time to pat yourself on the back. Take some time to like feel the emotions. There's going to be some blowback. There's going to be some bounce back and feelings probably in the next 24, 48 hours as you think about it. So really like take care of yourself, check in with yourself, unpack those feelings with people you trust, and, you know, reach out to us if you need anything. We'll see you next week.